Vamos a isso.
Heavy Culture, mais uma terça maldita. Galera do Heavy Culture, muito obrigado aí. Ivan, seja bem-vindo, Ivan. Miguel, Mr. M, Miguel Martins.
Mua.
Portugal Connection.
Tu hoje estás animado, Jorge.
Hoje eu tomei uns Red Bulls. Hoje eu tô animadaço. E hoje a gente tá HC, velho. É punk butinada na cara, né?
Verdade.
Galera, a gente tá hoje aqui com um convidado. Terça sempre tem um convidado bacana aí. Quem perdeu, inclusive, terça-feira passada, Blaze Baylor, aqui no canal. Foi uma grande live. Só procurar aí nos nossos vídeos quem perdeu, né? E hoje, para a gente manter o nível, né? Agora só num gênero um pouco mais extremo, aí, um pouco mais paulada, né? Hardcore crossover, a gente recebe aqui Harley Flanagam, Cro-Mags. Welcome, Harley.
How are you?
We are all doing well, despite this crazy, systemic
situation in the world right now. Yeah.
But we are glad to, as I was telling you when we were off, we are glad that this shit at least made us create heavy culture. So we are the sons of the pandemic, and here we are. So it's a great pleasure to have you on board with the Heavy Culture family. And, Cro-Mags is one of those bands that we follow since we are teenagers. And we know that you guys are, coming in, coming out, going out, coming in again. And man, what's going on? So at the moment, you are completely in. Is that right?
I am as in as you can get without smashing all the way through to someplace else. It's had a complicated history, but the one constant thing is that this has been my vehicle for creating and writing music and playing music. And throughout the years, it's taken, different shapes, and the lineups have gone through different incarnations. But if you look at all the albums, the one thing that has been consistent is that I was on them. And is there a time that was the most important to me? You know what? I know everybody, including myself, has a real love for the early days and that time and the history and what it represented and what it meant, not just the music, but culturally at that point. But honestly, my life is so good and I'm so happy right now that no matter how great the past was, I'm happier now than I ever have been. So this is the most important time is right now.
Okay, so I'll translate now into Portuguese, if you don't mind. Portanto, eu fiz a pergunta logo a iniciar, foi a pé juntos também, dizendo que os Cro-Mags são uma banda que nós conhecemos desde os nossos teens e nós vemos que o Cro-Mags, portanto, eles estão ativos, depois desaparecem, voltam a aparecer, desaparecem novamente, voltam a aparecer, grandes confusões na banda, mas o Harley acaba por dizer que uma coisa comum a toda esta história foi que, claro, ao longo deste tempo todo, apesar dos problemas, se divertiu. Os álbuns, ele aparece em todos, ele está sempre presente e agora, sumarizando, ele deixa ficar a ideia de que está mais feliz do que nunca e está pronto para batalhar. Ok? Jorge, vem a tua primeira?
Então, coincidência, aí tá fazendo um ano, acho que se não for hoje é amanhã, de uma live que o Cro-Mags realizou na internet aí logo no início da pandemia, né, cara? Um ano. Pioneiro. Eu queria perguntar, Exatamente. Eu queria perguntar para o Harley como surgiu essa ideia. Assim, eu acho que o Cro-Mags foi a primeira live de banda, assim, de metal que eu assisti, né? Nesse formato que se tornou um formato bastante comum depois, né? Então, como se deu essa ideia, assim, como surgiu tão rápido, né? Deles utilizar o recurso de live, assim, para promover a banda.
Okay, Harley. So Jay was saying that yesterday made a year. It was the anniversary of the live that Cro-Mags did, which you guys were pioneering, doing a live show through the internet. How came the idea of doing this kind of promotion in this format?
The same way that you guys are doing it right now. You know, I wouldn't say desperation. You're going to hear my dogs barking a little bit right now. This is live, so what are you going to do? My son is coming over.
He is really free to bark whenever he wants.
Freedom to the dog. Dogs of the world bark. But yeah, so the same way you guys came up with the idea to do this, you know. We literally, the show was supposed to happen, and within 48 hours of the show, the governor and the mayor said that there could be no public gatherings. So we were at practice and we were running down the set. We were getting ready, and it just hit me. I looked at the computer, I looked at the laptop, kind of like we're all doing right now, and I said, you know what? Let's just set up our gear as if we were doing a live show. Set up our backdrop, put up all our gear, not just like we're practicing, but set it up like we're here to like kick everybody's ass and do a live show. And fortunately, I knew some video and film production people from a movie that I had just worked on. So we called them, and within 48 hours, we pulled it together. And it was really, I thought, a high quality production under the circumstances. And it was also the last time that anybody got to play at that venue, which was SIR in New York City. It wound up becoming shut down because of the corona. And I'm sorry, I'll try to make my answers shorter.
No, you don't have to. You don't have to worry about that, because we will resume the answers so that we won't have to spend so much time here. But I'll take this chance to translate now. Portanto, ele deixa ficar a ideia de que.
Okay, so I don't feel so bad now.
Eles tiveram a ideia de fazer isto da mesma forma que nós tivemos, diz ele, é a resposta que ele deixa ficar. Portanto, fica então esta informação de que eles, de facto, estavam quase para tocar, 48 horas antes souberam que ia fechar tudo e claro, tornou-se complicado. Mas ele diz que ao mesmo tempo que estava a receber essa notícia, que olhou para o computador e pensou: porque é que nós não fazemos tudo, montamos tudo e fazemos o show como se estivéssemos a tocar ao vivo? E assim foi. Foi assim que tudo aconteceu. E nunca imaginaríamos que eles seriam as pessoas que iriam tomar a dianteira nesta, enfim,
foram pioneiros, né?
Nesta grande ferramenta de comunicação que nós conhecemos tão bem hoje, não é?
Excelente.
E a performance dele foi matadora nesse show, né?
Foi sem dúvida.
Como todas as outras. Até queria fugir um pouco do script e perguntar para ele como é que ele consegue se manter tão ativo assim, tão brutal ao vivo assim, que os outros shows são assim, são sempre assim.
So Ivan was asking, after saying that your performance on that first live stream was incredible, and I've watched it as well, and he's asking, how can you make your gigs like that, being so fit and so ready at this point?
Jiu-jitsu for more than 20 years. And also, I'm a black belt under Renzo Gracie, and I eat good. I take good care of myself. I haven't really been training any jiu-jitsu since this whole pandemic situation, but I still exercise every day. And I mean, I'm 54 years old, but I still, you got to do something. You know what? You have to. Life is a gift. So you should take a little bit of time every day to pay it the respect to do something positive and productive for yourself, physically or mentally or both, and if you're being lazy mentally, then do something productive physically and vice versa. And if you can do a little bit of both, then you're off to a good start,
Ok, Ivan, percebeste? é preciso estar ativo, sobretudo estar ativo. E ele diz que é uma pessoa que toma cuidado com aquilo que faz, com aquilo que come, e que apesar dos 54 anos dele, ele sente que está em forma.
Invejável a forma dele.
Sempre sente a necessidade de fazer algo, de não estar parado. E de facto esse é o segredo, sem dúvida. Agora vais continuar com a pergunta que tínhamos, não era?
Eu vou perguntar para ele a diferença. Existe uma diferença bem grande, assim, ao meu ver e aos meus ouvidos, do hardcore americano, especialmente o de Nova York, em comparação ao hardcore, digamos, europeu. Mas ambos tiveram uma influência muito grande na criação do thrash metal e do death metal. Em algumas bandas até do black metal. Qual é a opinião dele sobre isso?
Ok, this is
a... O Cro-Mags tem uma ligação direta com o thrash metal, assim, a gente percebe.
This is a tricky question. Ivan asked,
I'll do my best.
Ivan asked about the huge hardcore characteristics that American bands have. And also the European bands of hardcore have. So he's saying that everyone had, a band like Cro-Mags had a great influence in the creation of thrash metal, and also other, bands like death metal and even black metal. He was asking, what was your opinion about these fusions, these style fusions?
Well, to be honest with you, the Cro-Mags sound was also very influenced by... I was a huge fan of Venom. Okay, so we're talking around the same time period, but those guys, and I'm friends with those guys, and Kronos was a fan of Discharge. So, I mean, if you really just trace all the lineage of things, you can see where things kind of touch each other and rub off on each other. And obviously, I was a huge fan of Motorhead. I knew them very well. Phil Campbell played on my record one of my records I put out last year. I think that element is obviously in Cro-Mags, the Venom element, the Motorhead element. Obviously, there's a little bit of Sabbath in the way I play my bass. And Discharge is definitely... So there's, as much as the Cro-Mags may have influenced all these different things, we were influenced by a lot of things, most of them outside of hardcore. I mean, we were living the hardcore experience and going to all the hardcore shows, but we were listening to a lot more stuff than just hardcore. That's why we sounded different.
Okay, so, and by the way, did you get a lot of influence from... Imagine this, there were lots of beginners of thrash metal in Europe, and also bands like, let's imagine bands like Destruction, bands like Creator. I don't know if you listen to these guys, the music from Europe, if you got influenced by those guys.
Well, we didn't really know about that stuff when it was beginning, because it was on the other side of the world and you didn't have the internet and stuff like that. But we did wind up playing and touring with a lot of those bands and becoming friends with a lot of them. Stylistically, it wasn't as much my thing because, I grew up in the streets of New York, and just, the metal look and stuff really didn't appeal to me. The frizzy heavy metal hair and bullet belts and, tight ass jeans. It's just like the whole thing was just, I was dressed to fight, I wasn't dressed to get beat up.
I get it. Okay, let me translate this short part. Coming from Ivan's question. Portanto, ele deixa ficar a ideia de que eles não sentem que tanto que influenciaram bandas, eles foram sim beber algumas influências de bandas como ele nomeou, de Black Sabbath, de ajudem-me aí que eu já me perdi, de bandas de Venom, Motorhead, sim. Eles naquela altura acho que se deixavam influenciar também, porque eles estavam a começar em 81, não é? Nós temos que ter noção disso. E por outro lado, ele depois acaba por dizer que as bandas europeias que ele mais gostava foram aquelas que nomeou, porque depois também se deixaram influenciar por outras coisas que não eram propriamente hardcore. Lá nos Estados Unidos, portanto, todo aquele movimento hardcore era diferente do europeu, e ele sente que seguiram esse caminho de diferença e foi esse o percurso. Agora sou eu a fazer uma pergunta, não é? Eu vou deixar ficar a pergunta que diz respeito às tais diferenças, se é que ele consegue demarcar as diferenças entre o hardcore americano e o europeu, e quais são as maiores diferenças que ele destacaria delas. So, Harley, this is my time for a question, and I would like to ask you to elaborate this following answer the best way you can, because I know that you guys are here from the beginnings of the 80s, and you know for sure the differences, musical differences between the United States and Europe, and I'm talking about the differences in the hardcore scene. Could you elaborate, the main differences that you feel between those two styles, America and Europe?
Well, to be honest, hardcore, I think, was a pretty much American phenomenon that European bands started doing later. But so now if you're talking about, thrash metal and stuff like that, I think most of that stuff was inspired in Europe. And, obviously bands like, Anthrax and Metallica, Megadeth, all those bands are like, they're the huge ones. But I think that, all that stuff, I think, can ultimately get traced back to the what is it they call it, the first wave of British metal, like the Diamond Head stuff, all that, that whole, that's really the roots of thrash metal. But then those people, I think, got influenced, those were their roots, and I think that they then got influenced by bands like us and Suicidal Tendencies, because we managed to cross over first and foremost into MTV. So a lot of people discovered it that way, and then went and discovered other stuff and went and sought it out. But really, historically, I do believe that us, the Suicidal Tendencies, were probably the first, no, not probably, we're definitely the first two hardcore bands that ever touched MTV. And at that point, most of the metal was like, you know, hair metal. It was at best bands like Whitesnake, and at worst bands like Winger, you know. So, and then all of a sudden, some shit like the Cro-Mags would come on, and people would be like, "What the fuck just happened to my TV? Did we just go to like some other channel?" You know. And so, oh, there's my dog again. So you know, it was, you know. But I think that the thrash metal thing, it wasn't really that far behind what we were doing. I mean, it was around the same era, right? You know, I mean, more or less. The only thing that really preceded it was, you know, the punk stuff and that the metal stuff that we were just discussing. You know, your Diamond Head / who the hell else was? I can't think of them off the top of my head, but there were several bands that era and that moment that were, you know, the OGs of that movement, you know.
Okay.
Can't think. I didn't know I was going to be talking about this shit, but you get what I'm saying. Just like, you get what I'm saying. Like in New York, there were certain bands that were the, you know.
Yeah. Portanto, o Harley deixa ficar a ideia de que ele diz que inicialmente não havia influências, ou melhor, não notava as grandes diferenças entre o hardcore americano e o europeu, porque ele faz a afirmação de que o hardcore para ele é uma coisa que nasceu nos Estados Unidos e depois acaba por também definir a importância do thrash metal. Aí sim já houve algumas coisas que acabaram por os influenciar, mas sempre destacando o início do movimento com os Cro-Mags e principalmente com os Suicidal Tendencies. Portanto, fica a ideia dos precursores, não é, deste movimento. E ele afirma mesmo que foram os primeiros a passar na MTV, e isso deu-lhes um grande destaque, pois as pessoas estavam habituadas a sons mais calmos, bem mais leves, não é? O AOR e enfim, todo aquilo que estava em voga no momento na televisão. E então, quando de repente aparece Cro-Mags e Suicidal Tendencies, as pessoas, mas que raio é isto? Mas o que é certo é que isso ajudou a criar ainda mais um movimento dentro do que é o hardcore, não é? Porque nós sabemos o que é isso, é ir para o pit e siga para a frente.
E hoje tem a formação, era isso que tu ia falar, Jorge?
Não, pode.
Tem a formação hoje com o
guitarrista do Rocky George. Add one thing.
Sim, yeah,
I just like to add though. I would just like to add to that, though, that, again, Rocky, Cro-Mags and Suicidal also, I think, had a lot to do with thrash and the whole crossover thing, because if it wasn't for that shot of real fucking testosterone that they got out of bands like us, those motherfuckers wouldn't know what it was to really be hard. Like, think about it. You know, the metal boys really didn't, you know, they really didn't, you know, they really took them seeing bands like us and Suicidal to be like, whoa, you know, those are the tough kids in the schoolyard. Like, we want to be like them, you know? You know what I'm saying? So it's like...
Ok. O Harley deixa ficar a ideia de que e dá destaque também ao facto de eles serem aqueles rapazes que eram duros de roer e que de facto ajudaram a que a cena do metal fosse realmente bem mais agressiva e que fizesse as pessoas que estavam dentro da cena, apesar do estilo diferente, que tivessem mesmo vontade, é aquilo que eu quero. Portanto, ele deixa ficar a ideia de que na rua é que se ganha estaleca, e isso está mais do que provado, não é?
Eu tenho um complemento aí. Eu assisti um show do Cro-Mags em São Paulo, junho de 2010. Então todo mundo fala, né, que o show do Slayer tem um clima, né? E tem de fato, né? Que o bicho pega, mas no show do Cro-Mags eu pedi água. Eu fui lá no meio e a coisa foi tão pesada que eu soltei fora, tá? Eu não aguentei. Eu já fui no Mosh Pit do Slayer, do Napalm Death e do Cro-Mags. Eu confesso que eu não aguentei. Como diz o ditado, né? Não aguentei o tirão. Pergunta para ele aí o que tem, que tipo de
energia, né?
De energia, da onde sai essa fúria e essa inspiração, a fúria é o que a gente sente falta, a gente dessa geração nossa.
A atitude, né?
A atitude e essa raiva, né? Nas bandas de hoje em dia, né? Mas eu acho que é interessante, Miguel, por favor, passar essa experiência. Foi uma experiência de vida minha sobreviver ao Mosh Pits do Cro-Mags, cara.
Okay, so Jay was saying that he was fortunate to see you guys play live in Brazil in 2010 and in São Paulo, and he said that he went to the mosh pit and he couldn't handle it the full time. He had to come out. And he had experiences before in the mosh pit with bands like Slayer, Napalm Death, and others. So he was asking, where do you go and get that energy, that enthusiasm, that attitude? Where do you guys go and get that still today?
Well, first of all, I don't want to disappoint you, but you haven't seen the best yet, because the one time that the Cro-Mags went to Brazil, I was not with them. So it was only one member of the actual original band. But the power of those songs and the history that they invoke, it's something that you really can't describe. I have honestly seen cover bands doing some of those songs, and it has made me inspired, like, by how strong and aggressive those songs still are. So what you saw was a great tribute to the music, but when you see it the next time, you're going to see the most inspired band you've ever seen, because you saw one person that night who really meant it and other people who were doing it for a job. The next time you see it, you're going to see a whole group of people who want nothing more than to regain and recapture the history and take it to another level. And that's no disrespect to what you saw, because, you know, again, it's the music, it's the power of the music, you know. But as far as how I stay in shape and how I stay together, like I told you, you know, it has everything to do with just taking care of yourself, exercising, and I eat well, you know.
Ok. Jorge, percebeste? A versão que tu viste dos Cro-Mags, e sem desrespeito para aqueles que estavam em palco, não foi enfim, a versão atual. Ele diz que a música que tu viste tocar, sim, tinha essa agressividade, tinha essa história, mas ele deixa ficar a ideia de que a próxima vez que vires Cro-Mags ao vivo vai ser completamente diferente, vai trazer muito mais energia. As músicas, ele disse que inclusivamente já viu outras bandas tocarem versões de músicas de Cro-Mags, e que ele próprio sentia essa energia, essa agressividade que está contida nas músicas, e ele diz que lá está, é importante ele manter a forma, ele manter este espírito de procurar fazer sempre algo positivo e cuidar de si próprio. Lá está, exercício, alimentar-se bem e ter uma mente sã, sobretudo.
Foi o Cro-Mags AD que a gente assistiu. Foi o AD, o Ivan. É tipo o Entomb. É o AD.
Exatamente. Jorge, aí vem a outra.
Eu ia falar sobre o disco de junho, né, 2020, In The Beginning. Se eles têm acompanhado como está a performance aí hoje se mede pelas plataformas de streaming, né? Não é mais na venda de CDs. Perguntar se eles estão acompanhando, se esse álbum tem atingido aí a expectativa deles e do público.
Okay. So, Harley, do you understand any Portuguese word?
I do a little bit because obviously I spend a lot of time around Brazilians, but most of the time I was teaching them English, and because of that, I mostly know how to curse in Portuguese.
Okay, and hey, please give us an example.
Oh man, not so much, not so good. I'm really not that good. But I hear you like you mentioned in the beginning, and that wasn't the only record we managed to do last year. So this was actually a really busy time for us. And again, this goes to once again reflect on the power of the music. There's been a lot of different players throughout the history of the band. The one thing that has been consistent, I've been on every record and I've written or co-written every song. So that's really been the one thing that's consistent, that I came up with the name and put that first lineup together. Now, the crazy thing for me, that first album, it made so much history. It changed so much musically. And that lineup, those people who played on that record never did another record together again.
Yep.
Do you know that lineup of musicians, that group of people never even played together outside of America? By the time we got out of America on our first tour, our second drummer, Petey Hines, had joined the band. So it's a crazy history, And but if you look at Motorhead's first album, that lineup never played another record again either. So what are you gonna do? It's just.
Ok, let me translate now. O Harley voltou a pegar na história da força das músicas e também voltou ao passado, dizendo que esta banda já passou por muito, e o primeiro álbum foi um álbum tão importante na influência da música como nós a conhecemos, e o estranho é que aquela formação só tocou em apenas um disco. E inclusivamente nunca tocaram fora dos Estados Unidos, porque quando iam iniciar a primeira turnê fora dos Estados Unidos, eles acabaram por ter a entrada do segundo baterista. Ele volta a afirmar que a banda passou por tanta coisa que tem a sua importância por aí, não é? So now I'll add the question that Jay did before. So last year, in the beginning, came out and he asked, saying that performances and visualizations or listenings through the the apps that we all know at the moment are the way to measure the listeners, how's the album going, the sellings and stuff like that. And is asking what do you think that has been the performance of this in the beginning on platforms, streaming platforms?
Doing very well. It's been doing well. I don't know if it's been doing. You know what? I think it was a perfect combination of elements. The fact that it hadn't been a Cro-Mags record in a long time, and then the fact that there was nothing happening musically right when it came out. Everybody else, we were lucky that we had recorded in the beginning, right before the pandemic started. And then we were lucky that we were able to record 2020 before everything had opened up again. Because Steve Zing from Danzig, the bass player, he has a studio in his house. So I was able to, it was just the circumstances, my drummer got stuck in New York. He was supposed to be here for 2 weeks. He wound up stuck here for 7 months. So we wrote another record.
Ok. O Harley deixa ficar a ideia de que este In the Beginning foi um álbum que tem corrido muito bem nas plataformas de streaming, porque eles tiveram a sorte de lançar o disco, até principalmente de gravar o disco antes de começar toda esta pandemia. E por outro lado, já estavam avançados relativamente a muitas bandas, o que permitiu que tivessem, enfim, muitas audições através deste tipo de plataforma. Agora vou eu fazer a pergunta, achando eu que sinto que o crossover tem hoje menos expressão do que teve nos anos 80 e 90. Eu gostava de dizer que existem muitas bandas que representam bem o género, mas ainda falta alguma coisa para chegarmos a consolidar este crossover, o retorno do crossover. Eu vou questionar se ele concorda com esta afirmação. So, Harley, I feel that it's my idea. I feel that crossover doesn't have the same expression that had in the past, in the 80s and in the 90s. There are lots of bands that represent, hardcore and crossover, but we feel that something is missing still. Do you agree with that? Your face doesn't agree much.
You know what? I don't really pay attention to any genres as a whole. So that, I can't really say that because I feel good about what I'm doing, and that's all that I'm really worried about. I'm not worried about what the opposition is doing. I'm worried about being better than them. And when I say being better than them, I mean on a number of different levels. I mean, being able to put on a better show. Maybe they're better musicians than me, but I'm going to fucking smash them. That's my job. I'm going to go out there and fucking smash them. I don't need to play a bunch of notes. I could play, the fucking Ramones didn't need to play a bunch of notes. I'll go out there and I'll fucking smash you. So that's my job. And I don't worry about what everybody else is doing. I don't really give a fuck what everybody else is doing. I don't really listen to crossover or much. I listen to the same crossover, the same punk, the same hardcore, the same thrash that I did since I started listening to it. I listen to so many types of music though. I listen to more R&B throughout the day than I listen to anything else. I listen to reggae all day. I listen to jazz. I listen to so much different type of shit that, to be honest, I probably listen to less hardcore crossover thrash than any fucking thing else, because I do that shit for a fucking living. I do that shit myself. You fucking think a surgeon, after doing surgery all fucking day at his job, he's just been operating for 20 hours, you think he's gonna go home and fucking watch videos of people doing surgery and do more surgery? Hey honey, can I do some surgery on you? Fuck, man. Like when you're done doing your shit, you want to do something else, man. You can't do the same fucking shit all the time unless you're just fucking out of your mind,
Ok, good answer, indeed. O Harley deixa ficar a ideia de que não está preocupado em saber o que é que está, enfim, em voga no momento, qual é o estilo musical que está a dar mais, de que forma é que se está a comportar o crossover ou o hardcore. Ele preocupa-se sim com a sua performance, porque ele tem mesmo a ideia de que quando chegar à altura de mostrar aquilo que eles fazem ao vivo, ele vai dar cabo de vocês. É essa a ideia que ele deixa ficar. E depois ele diz que houve variadíssimos... E há variadíssimos estilos de música que ele ouve. Hoje em dia, continua a ouvir algum do crossover, do hardcore, do thrash que ouvia antes, quando começaram tudo, mas depois também houve variedíssimos estilos de música que ele nomeou por aqui, que que deixam então respirar, uma vez que ele diz que faz o hardcore crossover como forma de vida e depois deixa ficar a ideia a tom de brincadeira de que ele não, ele pergunta, achas que um cirurgião ia, depois de 20 horas de trabalho, ia chegar a casa à mulher, deixa-me operar-te? Se calhar a operação seria outra. Mas eu acho que é uma resposta de facto consistente com aquilo que temos ouvido ao longo do tempo com variedíssimos músicos com uma longa carreira que vão acabando por dizer que eu não estou a ouvir isto neste momento. Interessante.
Ele não consegue ouvir porque ele não para, ele tem várias bandas, né? E vários projetos paralelos. Com o nome deles, inclusive, né?
So Ivan was saying that you have no time. So, okay.
I was just going to add to also, you know, if you listen to only the type of stuff that you do, you're not really going to come up with anything new. You know, you're going to only be inspired by people that are listening to the same ingredients that everybody, if all the same cooks are only allowed to cook with the same ingredients, it's kind of probably all going to start to taste the same. You know, so if you don't have an open mind for different flavors and to try to incorporate different things stylistically into what you're doing, this shit's going to get fucking boring.
Ok, o Harley diz que de facto, se ele tivesse a ouvir sempre a mesma coisa, as influências que ele teria para a música que ele faz seriam as mesmas. Era o mesmo que cozinhar com os mesmos ingredientes todos os dias, a comida ia ser sempre a mesma. Ou seja, eu vejo que há aqui uma abertura da parte dele para inovar no estilo. Eu vou acabar por aproveitar para lhe perguntar isso, se ele acaba por fazer algum tipo de fusão, precisamente de sons externos à música mais agressiva, se ele acaba por se deixar influenciar por eles e acabem por ir para a música. So, Harley, following your last statement, I would like to ask you if you feel musically influenced by outside genres, styles of music that aren't aggressive at all, into new ideas and making this symbiosis of music, you know, around the sounds, just the sounds.
I always have. I just don't know if other people have realized it. You know, I could give you an example on every Cro-Mags record that has influences from genres outside of the circle of bands that that were in my genre, if you want to call it that. Like, I could literally give you elements of everything from jazz to, you know, jazz fusion to country music to funk to metal. I could give you even to like reggae. I could give you so many examples of things from other genres that inspired Cro-Mags songs. Like, you know, pick a record and I'll give you an example, you know. So that, once again, I think that's what has made this band different from other bands in this genre. And again, you know, literally every record has had a different group of players in some form or another. So if there has been a consistent element of stylistic sound, you know, that would have to come from me, just like the sound of Motorhead came from Lemmy, you know. Even though there was a different singer at one point, you know, even though there was actually 2 points, 3 points, whatever, even though there were different guitarists, there are certain elements that stay the same. I'm not saying one record is the best or one record's this, that, the other. I mean, and of course, Age of Quarrel was a classic because it really changed what was happening around us and it set the bar. It was a classic record and a classic lineup. And it was, you know, honestly, even with all the bullshit and all the drama that has been with those guys and every fucking buddy else that's been in and out of this revolving door band, I'm still very proud of all the stuff that we all did together. And, you know.
Okay. I'll put it to Portuguese now. O Harley deixa ficar. No problem. Ele diz que, acrescentando à história das influências, ele diz que se não fosse haver tantas influências como ele teve, os álbuns de Cro-Mags não soariam aquilo que soam, porque ele diz que se alguém quiser um exemplo de vários géneros que estavam fora dos sons mais agressivos em qualquer um dos álbuns deles, ele diz que consegue apontar influências desde o jazz até o reggae, entre outros estilos. Portanto, ele deixa ficar mesmo a ideia de que sempre houve essa influência e que também o facto de terem tido vários elementos a passar por várias formações em cada álbum, ele diz mesmo que essas influências estão presentes, não é? E ele continua a afirmar que, apesar das grandes confusões que houve com a banda, foram trabalhos que foram marcantes e que deixaram ficar um legado, sem dúvida, impressionante. Eu acho que ele está bastante positivo com aquilo que foi o passado, mas nota-se aqui uma sede muito mais pelo futuro. Eu sinto isso. Vou olhar agora aqui para o nosso alinhamento e é a vez do Jorge.
Então, do futuro para o passado agora, né? Eu quero tocar no primeiro álbum, né? O clássico The Age of Quarrel, né? É um disco 1986, né? Ele é unânime entre punks e metalheads. Então a pergunta é a seguinte: qual é a importância desse álbum, né? Que é unânime, ele é unânime, né? Tanto aí no cenário metal quanto na cena punk, né? Como esse álbum ainda repercute, né? Ele é seguidamente comentado e enfim, né? Ele resistiu ao teste do tempo, né? Como é que ele enxerga esse álbum hoje?
Okay. So, Harley, Jay was asking about, was first saying that The Age of Quarrel from 1986 is an album that has unanimity between punks and metalheads. And he says that still today, that album has people talking about it. And he asks, what's the importance of that album for the band, for you especially?
Well, honestly, I don't know what the importance to the other guys it has. Because I think that if it had any real importance, they would have already figured out a way to get back together with me to go out and do something about it. I know that it means enough to me to where even with all the backgrounds of bullshit that has happened, I would be willing to do that as some sort of even if it was just a tribute to that album and to that lineup, even if it wasn't to be a permanent thing, I would consider it an honor to be able to present that album with those gentlemen to the fans, even if it was only one time. Because I think that, well, you know why? Because I'm a fan of music. And I'm a fan of bands that mattered to me and had an influence on me. And I know that for many, many, many years, I wanted nothing more than to see Black Sabbath get back together. And I wanted nothing more than to see the Misfits get back together. And when I saw both of those bands get back together, I was just so happy. And the only thing that I felt was like, damn, why couldn't it have happened sooner? You know, so my door has been open. and it's not so much for that I want to like embrace these guys and roll around and fucking, you know, have a pillow fight, you know. Look, we were all assholes when we're young, whatever, I don't give a fuck. But if you can't put aside your own bullshit and your own ego for 45 minutes to go kick everybody's ass and put a smile on everybody's face, then you don't deserve those fans any fucking way. If you can't do that for them. So my door is open. And if not, I'll be happy to get the fuck out there and kick everybody's ass and put a smile on everybody's face. That's all. That's what I love to do, you know?
Ok. Eu acho que acabamos de ver que há aqui uma porta aberta para os Cro-Mags se voltarem a juntar com essa formação, se houver vontade da parte dos outros elementos que estiveram nesse disco. O Harley diz que não sabe qual é a importância que os outros elementos da banda dão a este disco. Ele diz que dá a devida importância porque é um álbum marcante e ele gostava, eu acho que ficou a ideia que ele gostava mesmo de voltar a reunir e de ir para lá para um palco e mostrar aquela vontade, aquela raiva, aquela atitude com os elementos da banda. Ele continua a achar que é possível, mas está sempre dependente do que eventualmente poderão dizer os outros. Ivan.
Então, já que ele falou sobre isso, então, se fosse para apresentar a banda para um cara que nunca ouviu o Cro-Mags, qual álbum ele apresentaria?
Okay, so Ivan was asking, imagine that a young kid would get next to you and ask you, okay, I never listened to Cro-Mags. Which album from the band do you think I should listen to first?
Honestly, I would say listen to the one that just came out because it's the most current, and that'll tell you what's happening with the band now instead of what was happening to the band before you were like swimming around in your dad's balls. You know, you want to know about like prehistoric history, or you want to know what's happening in the world now, and then go back. You know, the last record that we did, 2020, it's still hot, it's still fresh. It was written during a world crisis that every one of us lived through and experienced. Maybe they should check that record out because that is written about what was just going on and is still going on in our lives. And I think that musically it's as inspired, and it is inspired by all the Cro-Mags music that led up to it. And the fact that it was written and recorded over just a period of just a few months. My drummer got stuck in New York, and we were like, okay, let's write a record, let's record, boom. And within a few months, we had written a record and recorded it. So to me, that shows what a band is made of, or what an artist is made of, not what they did 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, and then you never gave a fuck about anything else they did after that. Give what we just did a chance. And then if you don't like it, go back and hear what we did in the old days, and maybe you'll like that better. If you do like it, go back and hear what we did in the old days, and maybe you'll like that even better than this, or maybe you'll like what we're doing now better. But
okay,
check out what the fuck I'm doing now.
Posso fazer uma outra pergunta depois?
Deixa-me traduzir primeiro, senão vou perder. Eu acho que esta indicação é interessante. O Harley diz que aquilo que diria a esse jovem que iria ouvir Cro-Mags pela primeira vez, olha, ouve primeiro o mais recente e depois, se quiseres, vai para trás para fazer as comparações. Ele diz que o músico acaba por ser feito um bocado de momentos, não é? E esse álbum de 2020 acabou por ser escrito porque o baterista ele volta a recordar a história, que ficou preso no aeroporto de Nova Iorque, e ele, olha, vamos para casa, vamos escrever mais um álbum, e em poucos meses escreveram um álbum, gravaram-no e saiu. Ele deixa ficar sempre a ideia de que as pessoas devem interessar-se por aquilo que a banda faz no momento e depois, sim, se suscitar curiosidade, devem ir ao passado. Mas também, se quiserem fazer ao contrário, não devem deixar de ouvir o que a banda está a fazer no momento, porque está lá tudo, não é? Então, qual é o acréscimo, Ivan?
Eu ia perguntar pra ele se amanhã fosse liberado pra fazer shows e ele tivesse que escolher 2 bandas pra sair em turnê. Quais são as bandas que ele escolheria? Turnê com o Cro-Mags.
Okay.
Boa.
Harley, if everything was clear and open tomorrow, and you could choose 2 bands to tour with Cro-Mags, which bands would you choose?
Well, the first band that comes to mind is Body Count, because we were supposed to play with them right when this whole thing started. We were actually supposed to play with them on March 15th, 1 year ago, and that's what wound up being our quarantine show. Because when less than 48 hours before the show got canceled, the governor and the mayor, all the way up until then, they were saying that it's still happening, it's still happening. And within 48 hours, the show got canceled. And that's what inspired us to do that show. You know, we were at practice getting ready, and we got the call that it was canceled. You know, I looked around and I saw the computer sitting there, kind of like we're all looking at the computer now. And I was like, you know what, let's just fucking set up all of our gear, put up our backdrop, and play a live show for the world for free. And I put it on all my social media, my Facebook, all my different Facebook pages, and my Instagram, and we played live. And it got over 200,000 views that day. You know, so you know,
and the second band.
So I would want to play with Body Count, because that was supposed to be the last show that we were supposed to do. So I would love to go on tour with Body Count. And if I could think of one other band, you know, oh man, there's so many. My brain is like having a war right now. There's like bands fighting. I don't even know. I'll tell you who wins. I'm not sure.
Hey, you remind me a song of Suicidal Tendencies. War Inside My Head.
That would be the best. That would be it. You just hit it. Us, Body Count, and Suicidal. That's it. That's the tour. Pow!
Okay.
Daí ia acabar o mundo daí.
Suicide é outro show nervoso, bicho, que eu peguei, assim, bem nervoso, viu? Bem nervoso.
Sim.
Tem uma do público, Miguel.
But if Metallica wants me to come show them how it's done, I'll remind them, you know.
Ok. Portanto, fica a ideia do regresso até antes do período de pandemia. Eles estavam para sair em turnê com os Body Count. Essa, claro, que seria a primeira escolha do Harley. Depois, com alguma... Enfim, estivemos a puxar o cordel para ele dizer a segunda banda, e ele acaba por dizer que Suicidal era a escolha certa, porque depois da guerra que ele teve dentro do cérebro, vem o War Inside My Head. Claro, a resposta está ali, Suicidal Tendencies. E também diz que se os Metallica quisessem, eventualmente, ele até alinhava com Metallica. So now, Harley, we go to a question from our audience. There's a Joel Freitas, a fucking bastard that I know. Grande abraço, Joel.
What's up, you fucking bastard?
Yeah. So he was writing, I would like to know, in your opinion, if there's a masterpiece from Cro-Mags, and which one would be that masterpiece of your consideration?
You know, again, I'm going to have to say the last record, because I think it's the most evolved. But then there's always the first record, because that in itself was a game changer. So, you know, very often I have to look at the different stages in the Cro-Mags as its own chapter. Like, you know, there's Cro-Mags, and then there's, you know, the Age of Quarrel period. There's the Best Wishes period. You know, there's Cro-Mags, Alpha Omega, and so on and so on. I'm hearing myself. You know, so, but I think that this last record is artistically the most inspired, because it was, you know, when you write something, when you create it right then and there, that's when it's hot. You know what I'm saying? It's like something about jazz. I always loved. It's like a lot of times they'll just like record it one time, boom, that's it, live with it, you know. And that's why I liked the last two records. I wrote a lot of the music in the studio because I like that fire. You know, sometimes I like to really practice. I like to practice the songs really tight, but then other songs I just like to, you know. And the more you do it over and over, sometimes you lose that freshness. And the last album, it was just fire. It was just you know.
Okay.
That like the last song is just an insane jazz fusion fucking madness. It's chaos. It's fucking musical chaos.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Joel, he lives in the UK. He understood your answer because you know, he's a fucking bastard. But I'll translate it to Portuguese anyway because we have some other people that will see it and might see it. Ele portanto, volta a dar a indicação de que o último álbum devia ser a aposta feita para o Masterpiece, porque lá está, reúne aquilo que se sente no momento. É um álbum que ele diz que, apesar de gostar de ensaiar bem as músicas, há algumas que chegam ao estúdio e aquilo é mesmo descarregar adrenalina enquanto se grava. E por isso estes dois últimos álbuns trazem bastante energia. Vamos para a última pergunta, que será do meu lado. Confirmam vocês aí, povo do Brasil?
Yes!
Vamos a isso então. Eu vou perguntar... esta questão não aparece por acaso. Estamos a falar com uma pessoa que está num estilo completamente diferente às entrevistas que nós temos feito e a minha pergunta está um bocado relacionada com esta diferença. Eu vou-lhe perguntar se ele ainda vê a música como afirmação ideológica ou se já existe a ideia de música como entretenimento. Ok?
Ótimo.
So, this last question comes from myself, and I will ask you if you still see the music, you know, in a ideological way, or if now you see it more or in any way related to entertainment.
Well, as soon as people are going and paying money to enjoy it, it's a form of entertainment, whether you're taking it seriously or not. So the good news is that I take it seriously every day, all the time. So if I'm entertaining people while I'm doing what I enjoy doing it, and I'm having a great time doing it, and I'm taking it very serious as far as my performance and treating it as an athlete with their job, you know, I'm going out there and trying to do it at a high level, you know, and then you're getting the best of both, because I mean, what's wrong with the musician actually being able to pay their bills by doing what other people enjoy seeing them do? I think anybody that has this idea that musicians have to suffer to be genuine, that's the most ridiculous fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. And believe me, I've suffered enough.
Okay. Now I'll put it to Portuguese again. Ele respondeu muito bem, é a minha ideia. Ele diz que qual é o mal em perceber que um músico vive da música, que paga as contas através da música, fazendo aquilo profissionalmente, é a profissão dele, mas que se apercebe que há alguém que aproveita esse entretenimento e que gosta e que paga para ver esse entretenimento. Ele suporta a ideia de que não é defensor de que o músico tem que sofrer para mostrar aquilo que faz, para tocar a música da forma como eles fazem. Portanto, eu acho que resumidamente é isto. É isto esta ideia que fica. Agora vamos para as despedidas, não é? Porque já ultrapassámos a nossa habitual hora e eu vou dar a indicação ao Harley de que nós gostámos imenso. Eu gostei muito de falar com ele. Eu estava à espera de algo diferente, mas ele surpreendeu-me. Por isso, um bem-aja para ele, para quem assistiu e quem vai assistir. Ivan, a falta de deixares a mensagem do sininho, não disseste no início? Tens que ligar o microfone.
Então, vamos se inscrever no canal aí, vamos acompanhar, vamos compartilhar. Se inscreva no canal, toque no sininho, que o Miguel tanto fala, e vamos compartilhar. E a gente teve a oportunidade de falar com um cara aqui que influenciou muitas bandas que eu escuto e ouço, e muitas coisas que eu ouvi veio do hardcore do Cro-Mags. Então foi uma satisfação enorme estar falando com um cara que começou tudo isso. Estava lá desde o começo. Quem não assistiu vai assistir mais tarde.
Isso, sem dúvida, porque uma vez na internet, para sempre na internet. Lá. Dizemos nós, enquanto não houver o holocausto eletrónico.
E é um cara que para a gente assistir...
O holocausto eletrônico.
O holocausto eletrônico. E um cara que invejavelmente tem uma presença de palco fulminante, cara. Invejável, pela idade que o cara tem. Não, cara. Porra. Bota muito moleque aí, inclusive pura, eu no chinelo.
So, Harley, we are doing a review of this interview. So in Portuguese,
okay.
and again, Ivan was saying the importance he felt that Cro-Mags had in the music scene, and you know, all experiences that you had in the past are, you know, wonderful, a great time of history. And
I wouldn't call it wonderful, but you know, history, yes. Wonderful, no.
Okay, but for us, you know, as followers, fans, whatever you want to call it.
I get it.
Because, you know, not everyone knows what things you have been through. You know, those things, those hard times.
You don't want to.
But anyway, it was a pleasure, Harley, to have you with us. And I hope that Cro-Mags will join... so we'll join my brain is melting. It's a war inside my head. Body count and Judas Judas body count and suicidal tendencies. And I hope
you know what? I would love to play with Judas Priest too. Shout out to Rob Hoffman.
Open the door, man. Open the door. So it was a great pleasure.
Hey, man, he's a Cro-Mags fan. You know that? Rob,
I believe you.
Cro-Mags fan.
Yeah. I do believe you.
So you never know.
As you see,
I was very proud of that when I heard it.
Of course. We all know that. So we hope that everything goes well in the future. Hope to see you guys in Portugal and running Europe when possible,
yes.
and of course that you go to the South America countries and visit them and play there.
It's all supposed to happen. It's all supposed to happen. Like I was saying, it's supposed to happen towards the end of the year. If everything goes as we hope it will, we'll be there then. If it gets canceled, at least all the contacts have been made, so we will be there. If the shows do not happen, they will get rebooked, because now it took me this long to make the contacts, and we definitely are on our way.
Okay, so all the best for the future. Thank you so much again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Ficamos a saber que eles vão querer correr tudo e aquilo que estava marcado irá acontecer no futuro. Esperemos que, de facto, os promotores não cancelem as coisas e, sobretudo, que não haja o holocausto eletrónico para nós sabermos das notícias, não é? Gostei. Por acaso foi inspiração no momento.
Ótimo.
Deixem-me agradecer. Vou pedir ao Jorge que nos recorde quando e qual vai ser a próxima live.
Então, teremos aqui na próxima terça Mr. Tony Dolan from Venom Inc. Vai estar aqui conosco, né? O nosso querido amigo Tony Dolan. E fantástico hoje conversar com essa lenda aqui, né? Enfim, a gente está muito feliz. Agradece de novo, Miguel, por favor. É um privilégio.
Uma satisfação enorme.
A big satisfaction from Brazil and also from Portugal, okay? Thank you again so much for all of these answers you gave us. Thank you.
I look
on the road.
with no screen next time.
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Galera, have
Tchau,
your turn.
olha.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.